If you follow the standard gauge railway westwards from Nairobi, past the Naivasha dry port, into the open grassland of Narok County, you will eventually reach a place called Suswa. And there, without ceremony or explanation, the tracks stop. There is no station, no platform, no sign telling you where the railway was supposed to go next. There is just the end of something that was meant to continue, sitting quietly in the landscape, as if waiting to be remembered. And the story of how we got here is something most Kenyans don't fully know. Today, we are going to trace that story, from the first loan agreement to the latest extension.
Yeah. Boy, check 1, 2, 3. Yeah. Mic check.
In March of 2026, Ruto stood in Kisumu with Uganda's Museveni and launched an extension of the SGR all the way to Uganda border. But before we get here, cast your mind back to December of 2014. The government announced Kenya will build a modern standard gauge railway, Mombasa to Nairobi. The first phase of the line will eventually reach Uganda. The contract went to China Road and Bridge Corporation. The money came from China Exim Bank. Kenya will borrow, China will build, Kenya will repay over 20 years. On paper, a straightforward infrastructure deal. Phase 1 opened in 2017. Approximate cost $3.8 billion US. That is about 490 billion Kenyan shillings. Phase 2 added another $1.5 billion US. Total for the first 729 kilometers, about $5 billion US. Borrowed almost entirely from China. Here is what the debt looks like today. Kenya spends almost 129 billion shillings every year servicing Chinese debt, most of it tied to the SGR. Last year, Kenya Railways generated about 21 billion Kenyan shillings in revenue. You don't need a calculator. Kenya is spending 6 times more repaying the railway than the railway is earning back. And then there is the penalties. The Auditor General found that over 33.6 billion Kenyan shillings has been lost in penalties and interest alone from delayed payment. This is the money lost before a single passenger boarded a train. But here's the detail that should make every Kenyan uncomfortable. The original loan agreement had a confidentiality clause. Kenya was contractually prohibited from telling its own citizens the full terms of the deal. A sovereign government borrowing in your name and agreeing not to tell you about it. Civil society went to court. The case dragged for years, and in 2026, the Court of Appeal finally ruled. Withholding that information was unconstitutional. After Naivasha, the railway stopped. Literally. There's a point in Suswa, Narok County, where the track just ends, in the middle of nowhere. Phase 3, Kisumu, and then Malaba had been discussed since 2008 under Kibaki. But China Exim Bank pulled out. They cited Kenya's rising debt and doubts about the commercial viability of extending west. So the railway sat incomplete for years. But here's the thing. The SGR was constructed to help ease cargo transport from the port of Mombasa to landlocked countries of East Africa who rely on Mombasa. Meanwhile, cargo from Mombasa to Uganda kept moving by road. Nearly 70% of port volume in 2025 were destined for Uganda. The journey from Mombasa to Kampala by road takes over 100 hours. That inefficiency costs the entire region billions every year. On March 19, Ruto broke ground in Suswa again. 2 days later, he launched in Kisumu. This time, with Museveni standing next to him. Phase 2B, 265 kilometers from Narok, through Bomet, Kericho, and into Kisumu, plus a 8.6-kilometer branch line to connect the new port of Kisumu. Phase 2C, 107 kilometers from Kisumu through Siaya, Vihiga, Kakamega, Busia, and to Malaba. The contractor, China Communication Construction Company. The estimated cost between 500 to 700 billion shillings. Now, the argument is actually compelling. A single SGR freight carries 4,000 tons. That's the equivalent of 200 trucks on the road. Container costs between Mombasa and Kampala could fall from 350,000 Kenyan shillings to around 160,000 Kenyan shillings per container. Transit time from 5 days to under 1. For Uganda, Rwanda, Burundi, South Sudan, the DRC, all dependent on Mombasa, this matters enormously. The vision is real, but what makes it different from the other is that the vision is there, but the money isn't. Here is the financing question that nobody has fully answered. China Exim Bank, the same lender that funded the first phase at 90%, has this time agreed to only cover 30%. A sharp drop. Kenya covers another 30%. The remaining 40%, that depends on private investors Kenya has not yet named. The government is exploring Panda Bond, a sovereign bond issued in Chinese yuan on the Shanghai Stock Exchange. As of mid-2026, that bond has not been issued. The Treasury confirmed it will happen this financial year. Construction is expected to begin in July 2026. Completion targeted for June 2027. The money is still being figured out. So here is where Kenya stands in 2026. We have a train that works and Kenyans love. We are spending 129 billion shillings a year, servicing that debt 6 times what the railway earns. We are now building another 371 kilometers at up to 700 billion Kenyan shillings, with 40% of the financing still unconfirmed. And we just won a court battle to even see the terms of the first loan. The railway might genuinely transform this region. The economic logic is real, but so is the pressure on a country that IMF has flagged as being a significant risk of debt distress. Both things are true at the same time. This is your money. You are allowed to ask questions.
Boy, check 1, 2, 3. Yeah. Mic check 1, 2, 3. Final countdown.